Hi everyone, it's Ann Huffman, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do a print and cut in Silhouette version 4.1. I found this little cutie on Google in Zazzle, but I'm going to get rid of that at the bottom. So I'm going to the drawing tools and select the rectangle and draw a box around it. Get it right below her feet. And my mouse has been acting kind of weird on me, so I'm going to click on the box and use my arrow key. What do I have? Image. Okay, so I'll just slide her up in this little box some here. I think that'll work. So what I want to do now is I have my rectangle. I think that's the outer image of her. And when I click here, I should just get this rectangle. So I have two things there. So I'm going to select both of them, go over to my modify panel and select crop. Now I don't have that at the very bottom down there. So let me just move this title on up here at the top. We won't be needing it. And what I like to do is enlarge my image so that the scanning part of the software can pick up more details. But I am running into some problems with my mouse here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is trace her. Now, I'm not going to trace her as far as layering her. I need to trace her and detach her from this white background that's here. When I did the rectangle, I could have gotten even closer and would have had less of the white to get rid of. That probably would have been smarter for me, but anyway, I'm going to keep it as is now that this mouse is kind of moving a little bit faster. But we're going to trace her, and what my objective is to trace the outer edges of her, so that I can detach her from that, and all we have is this little cutie here. So I'm going to close the modify panel and click on the trace panel and select trace area. And I'm going to try and get as close to her, this mouse. Oh wow, that is not going to work. Ah, see if I can move faster, close to her as I can. Now, I'm really not all that concerned with what's going on in the middle of her. I need the outline of her, and I need the outline of these pearls as well. So now I have to play with the threshold over here. And you also have the high pass and the low pass filters that you can play with as well. I'm just going to try and see where I can go with the threshold. Now, I don't have the very best hand-eye coordination, so I'm going to use the slider for a while, and then I'll use my arrow up and down. So now you see more of her is turning gold, and I'm going to stop and start using my arrow because I don't have enough of yellow, which is the outline on this side of the pearls. I've got a good outline around her legs, not so much around the little skirt there. I think the wings look pretty good, and the crown. So let's see if I ease up to maybe 90 and see if I can get a little bit more of the pearls. And I did get a little bit more of the pearls going on there. 90, go maybe 92, 3, 4. Just trying to get as much of her as I can, but I don't want to start getting this fuzz around the edges. So 97 is too much. And this, I think, is an opening in her hair, so I need to go down a little. Probably was too much over here, but I'm going to go back up to 95 and call it a day. And so now I'm going to do trace and detach. And when it comes back to the image and I pull her off, she is now detached from, let's see if I can find this and show you. Uh, my mouse is still acting crazy. It should not. There you go. Let me close this panel. That's what she was attached to, but I did lose a little bit of her bow, her ribbon, it looks like there. So uh, that number may have been too much, but that's something that you would have to play around with. Now, the other thing is, she would look like she's ready to go if I had her on here. For me, I don't really do a lot of my designing on my virtual mat. I do a lot over here on this gray area because it really shows what's going on. Now I see that I've got some white inside the pearls. I've got this area here. I've got this little area between her head and her bow and a little bit in the crown. Everything else, I guess, looks about as good as I can get it. This was not a high resolution image to begin with. So I need to get rid of that. And the only way I would have seen it was to move it over here in the gray, because I would not have seen it over here. Now I've pointed these areas out to you. Now, when I move her back over here, you don't see that. So that's why it's good sometimes to not do all of your designing over here. And I know some of you use the grid. I don't use the grid. So in order to remove, in order to, like it got a little faster maybe, to remove this on the inside, we need to do one more trace on her. I'm going to click off of it and go back and select trace, and I want to select trace area. And I'm only going to select, let me zoom in. I think I see one more area that probably is not enough to even be bothered with there. So let me zoom back out. Okay. So I have select my trace area. And the area I'm going to trace is only going to be from here to here. And I know this looks weird, but all I want is this area underneath her elbow and in between these pearls. And so now let me play with it, because everything else can turn yellow except for those two areas. And let me use this arrow up. I think that now I'm getting too much trash. So about right here looks good. And so I'll say trace now, not trace and detach, trace. And I know that that doesn't make any sense to you right now, but it soon will. So I'll close this, and I'm going to click on it and right click and release compound path. And I only want this piece here, which is what's going to go underneath the elbow. So I'm holding the shift key down and click it, and I'm holding the shift key down to click that part. And the rest of it, I'm just going to hit the delete key because I didn't need the rest of it. So let me get the color palette going back here and give it a color so you can see exactly what's going on. So I'm going to move this and put it right there and grab this piece. Come on, mouse. There. And so now all I'm going to do is let me zoom back out so you can see what's happening. Still a little big. Okay, so I want to select the little pieces that I just colored blue, and I am holding the shift key down. Now I'm going to select her, and then I'll right click and select make compound path. Now you can see through those areas. See, you can see through them. So it will cut in there and you'll have a much better cut. You would do the same thing for here, here, and here. I'm not going to for the sake of the length of the video, but I would select trace area and just grab over the crown and to cover inside the bow and do exactly what you saw I did here to get those areas so that they will cut. So now I'm finished as far as my design goes. What happened? Okay, okay. So now that I'm finished with my design, I'm going to go to get it set now for print. And that's when you want to do the registration marks. And of course, you can go up here to the page setup and do your registration mark to get it set up from here. But I'm just going to hit the letter M on my keyboard, and that sets it up. Now we want to make sure I'm going to click show print border. I need to change the paper size to 8.50, and I'm hitting tab 11.0 and hit tab. Now I'm at paper size. I know I can take off this cut. I really want to look at where the print border is going to be. So she's too big right now. So I'm clicking on her, holding the shift key down, and I'm bringing her down. And she needs to not be in the cross. I don't know what you will call. I know it's a registration area, so I don't know if they call that the crosshair or what that area is. But what I see a lot of people do is they change their. Let me click over here on registration. A lot of people will. Here's my registration marks at advance. They change all of these numbers, but I would not change this bottom number at all, just trying to fit more in here. But I'm just going to say that this is the only one that we have. So now I'm ready to cut her. I have my registration marks going, not cut her, print her. So the registration marks are fine. So I'm ready now to click on my send panel, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to send it to my printer. And I have a Hewlett Packard printer because I need to print it. And when she's finished printing, then I'm going to get the paper out of the printer and put it on my mat so that I can run it through my Cameo so that it will cut it. So let's just say that I printed it and she printed fine, and now I'm ready to cut. So at this point, it's set up as no cut, and I want it to cut the edge. So I'm going to just click on it, and I'm going to say cut edge. And you notice it cut inside there, so I'm going to get a much sharper cut from it. All of this, what's going on here is um, uh, where I think I messed up her ribbon. So for you, you would need to go back and redo your trace and attach so that you don't get this. But if you fix the crown, it would be red in here and it would have been red in there as well. So, but this is what it would now, let's see here. I don't see it on the bottom of her foot. Okay, now I can see it. There was something that was holding it back, but I see it down there. And then you would just simply, do your settings over here depending on what how heavy your card stock is or whatever, and then just tell it to send. I don't have mine hooked up to my Cameo, and then it would cut it all everywhere where you see the red line at. Now I'm just gonna back up one step, um, and that is what I see some of you do. I don't do enough print and cut to really understand why you do it, but for the benefit of you that are new that may like that, let me just show you what some people do as well. Now, I would have cut her just like I just showed you, but I noticed that some people do like to have an offset around it. And so with her highlighted, I'm in the offset panel. I'm just going to click offset, and you see it's a wide offset for the default number, but just decrease that number. And I'm going to try to do offset until it gets on the inside here. And you can see it slowly getting in there as well. I may have gone all the way to 0. Nope, 10, maybe 20. Okay. So you have an offset around it, but that offset is going to default to be white. And I noticed that a lot of people have a white area around it. I'm not saying that it's wrong, and I don't do enough of it. But if I was doing this for my granddaughter, I would, the offset is what is selected right now. I would click on it and probably change my color from white to get a pink color on it. And I'm going to click off of it and move it out of the way, um, as far as having that offset. I don't even know how you do that because that is a whole solid piece right there. But or maybe you just don't get as close to the edges. I'm not sure on that. But I would prefer to have an offset that is a color. I don't know what's going on here. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show, and I'm gonna go ahead and end this tutorial. What is going on there? It's weird. Okay.